the door is open now, and so we'll just let people come in and start watching the broadcast before we actually start to get into the presentation. So as everyone joins, if you guys can let us know where you're coming from, yeah, like where you're at, give a shout out to your ʻāina, your ʻonihanau, or where it is that you're living right now, or you can shout out your ʻāina hanau too. You know, I don't live in Palolo nowadays, but I will always rep Palolo Valley on Oahu. But I'm currently in Aliʻi. Oh, mahalo. We have, Kaliko coming in from Kauai. Aloha e Kaliko. So as people join, just give a shout out to where you're joining us from so we can get a feel for who we, talking to today. Oh, yes. See, look, this is what I love is that our audience starts to get real specific. Yeah. From Hana Pepe and Haleiwa and Waipio. Oh, from Ola'a in Puna. Aloha. Oh, Kaleponi is joining us. Kalama Valley, Kailua, Halawa, Maikai for everyone coming in. And know too that we are operating both on Zoom here. And so there's an active chat that we're following here on Zoom. But if you want to ask questions, the place where we're going to look for the questions is on Zoom and on the OHA Facebook page. So if you can go to the OHA Facebook page, if you're on the Facebook platform, if you go on the OHA Facebook page, you can post your questions there or in here in Zoom. We want to mahalo all of our partners out there that are also simulcasting this showcase. We have Ahakane out there, of course, Mehanaokalā and their social media platforms. We have Mele and Manaʻo out there that's broadcasting this. I think Hawaiian Kingdom might have jumped in on this one. And it's so funny. It's like, I'm Hawaiian Kingdom. I'm from Kamakakuakalani. Davis is from Kamakakuakalani. Kamana is from Kamakakuakalani. And Hina, you must have spent some time at Kamakakuakalani. So, shout out to Hawaiian Kingdom. And so we mahalo all of our partners for doing that. Okay. Oh, mahalo. We get some Wakine Kona people joining us. Nu'uwanu, Moana Lua, Waikoloa. Yeah. And Wailua Homesteads in Puna, Kauai. And mahalo for everybody for using those names, right? And that's the reason that we want you guys to do that too. Also is to, like everybody get ma'a to those inoa ʻāina. Right now, I'm going to give a little teaser, a preview of what's to come this Saturday at 6 p.m. on KGMB. We have our next episode. We had our first episode last week, but this week we're going to have ʻōlaka Hāloa again this Saturday at 6 p.m. I'm so excited about our guest on that show. And so, yeah, can we hit the teaser for that, the promo for that? On the next episode of ʻōlaka Hāloa, we talk with an organization on Kauai that is connecting farmers and communities to feed our ohana. We then travel to He Aliʻi to do an Aloha ʻāina check-in. Then we'll hear from an organization who is training young people on how to utilize our ʻōlelo Hawaii to bridge our past, present, and future. Then back to Oahu to check in with some Native Hawaiian entrepreneurs who are doing things a little differently. Join us for ʻōlaka Hāloa this Saturday at 6 p.m. on KGMB. Yeah, mahalo. Just look at that lineup of wahine on there, and they represent across the Āina. So come and join us on Saturday, KGMB. It'll be repeated again on Sunday, I think at 12:30 on KHNL, and then again on Tuesday on K5. Now, speaking of teasing what's coming up, I'm going to bring on Davis to talk a little bit about our next show after this one, next week's show. Davis?
Awesome. Mahalo, Mehana, and beautiful shirt, by the way, the blouse on the top on that. commercial.
Yeah,
Shout
right.
out to the new Pippa. I never saw that shirt yet. That's
No,
a really
it's,
nice
you
print.
know what's really interesting is that it hasn't even been released. It's a dress, but it
That's
hasn't
right.
even been sold yet. So the designer Kaulua'e, he posted, "Hey, this is a preview of what's coming next week." I called him up. I said, "I need that dress now. You don't even understand. I need that
That's a
dress
nice
right
one.
now, and I need to jump on a TV with it." So mahalo, shout out to
Well,
Aloha Big
if
Girl.
you got hookups like that, I like the shirt version, please.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so mahalo, everyone. Last week Hina and I, we kicked off this series, which is meant to discuss Oiwi engagement, civic engagement, provide some history, provide some culture via Mele from Hina, and really start to have a real inspiring and motivational discussion about what civic engagement means, and tell some stories. And last week we kicked that off with Hina sharing the story of Umi and Hakau, and then we fast forwarded a bit, and I discussed the post-overthrow era and some of the critical figures of that time. And today we have Kamana on the show, and he'll be discussing land tenure, ancestral Hawaiian leadership, moving on to the kingdom. And just to give a snapshot of what's to come on this weekly series, next week we'll be diving a little bit deeper into that post-overthrow territorial era with Kavika Burgess. And then the following week, we are going to discuss the Hawaiian Renaissance and the Constitutional Convention of 1978. And we'll have Governor John Waihe'e, who was one of the leaders of the Kankan and was a critical figure in the Hawaiian Renaissance. So we're going to keep expanding and talking about different kind of time periods. So it's really exciting, and we hope that you folks continue to tune in. And I just want to offer a clarification that was pointed out to me on our presentation last week. I briefly discussed the 1900, the election in 1900, where Hawaii elected its first delegate to the U.S. Congress, and I pointed out that some of the key leaders of the time, Kuhio, Wilcox, and Pi'ikoi, had launched the three main political parties. And what was pointed out to me, and mahalo to He Aliʻi Sonora Pale for pointing this out, Kuhio was actually part of the Home Rule Party in 1900 with him and Wilcox were in the same party, and it wasn't until 1902 that Kuhio split and aligned with the Republican Party, and he then won that election in 1902 when Wilcox passed away. So just wanted to offer that clarity, and that's a great opportunity to highlight how these sessions can kind of spark some discussion, and whether it's fact-checking or whether it's debating how the decisions were made or why decisions were made. That's what we hope comes of this. So mahalo to everyone for tuning in, and mahalo Kamana. Look forward to your presentation, and I'll just hand it back to Mehana. Thank you.
Yeah, mahalo, Davis. And so this, again, the format of this show is that we're going to have our guests speak, and then in between the guest speaker, we're going to have Davis field some questions, from all of you out there. So if you do have them, again, go to the OHA Facebook page or join us here on Zoom. Click the link on wherever you're kind of getting a glimpse of this, and we'll be able to, kind of go through that questions and field those questions. And right now, oh my goodness, without further ado, I want to introduce all of you to one of my favorite people in the world. I mean, like, he truly is one of my favorite people in the world. I met this guy when he was just a young man at the University of Hawaii, and he was a philosophy major, and he wanted to come over into Hawaiian studies. And I had not heard of Kamana Beamer before that. I don't follow high school sports too much, and didn't realize that we had a star athlete in my midst. But when he came to UH and wanted to come into Hawaiian studies, I always remember that first time he came into my office and sat down and discussed his intentions. And from that point on, I was sold. I was impressed, with this young man who had so much desire and dreams, which, he's made come true. Dr. Kamana Beamer. Hails from the island of Kauai, now resides on the island of Hawaii. It's Ohana, and get family roots all over, across the Āina. is a professor at the UH Kamakakuakalani and Richardson School of Law in a joint position under their Hui ʻāina Momona program. He used to be the president and CEO of the Kohala Center, right there nestled on Hawaii Island. And he was also the director of the ʻāina-based education program at Kamehameha Schools, excuse me. And he, was heading the First Nations Future Institute, which has produced many of our, well, I like to call our young hammers out there, our young people who are doing amazing work right now, especially in the field of resource management, but, all across the different industries and disciplines. A lot of them came out of that program.
Proud alum here. Proud alum. Proud alum.
Yeah. Represent. I know I never made it into that program. I gotta get my stuff together. But he is also, one of these positions that is so prized in our community because we need advocacy at that level. Was is currently still a Hawaii State Commissioner on the Commission on Water Resources, right? So when we was looking around the Lahui looking for water commissioners, people who would be able to effectively advocate in that arena, right? I think we was just like, come on, please. And of course, there's desire there to do that, but those are heavy positions and they take a lot of work and they take a lot of time. And, so we mahalo him for doing that commitment. He's also a prize-winning author of his book, kind of a landmark book, actually, No Ma Ko Kamana. Right. And I was like, oh, beautiful how he would work his name into that title. Yeah. When I write my first book, I'm going to do that too. Somehow Mehanaokalā got to get into the title of the book. I was like, that was genius, but of course the topic of that was liberating the nation. Right. And he's followed his path from his bachelor's degrees in Kamakakuakalani, then to geography, and graduating with his doctorate there, publishing this landmark book here that talks about land tenure and how it is what our history can inform for our now and into our future. And I think the most prized position he holds right now is of Makuakane. And mahalo, I've seen him, go from young student to father, and it's just an amazing transition, across, right? And the reason why I spend so much time on these intros is because I think our Lahui needs to have space and time to celebrate us, right? And celebrate those accomplishments that take a lot of us, right? There's always a community around our successes, right? And people out there can pinpoint where in Kamana's own mo'olelo, right, where we've also been influenced to him and influenced by him, right? So all that to say, mahalo nui Kamana. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to your presentation. Take it away.
Wow, mahalo piha ia oi, mehana. O ka oia i'o, maupopo e ha'i lalo ana wau, maki ano he polo peka kia manawa aka, o ka oia i'o, maupopo ia'u, he kaua no wau, I ke aloha I ka ʻāina. And no leila mahalo. I just want to thank you. What everybody should know about Mehana is, as long as I've known her, I don't think I've ever met a single person that has, truly advocated for, individual Hawaiians with such passion and aloha and grace. And, I will always have the most deep respect for you, Mehana, as the student advisor and everything that you've done. Just bringing so much of your heart and soul and your aloha to what you do. So mahalo for that. And also, nui ka hauʻoli, ka ha'aha'a, to have a chance to speak alongside, my people I respect, Hina, and then, your work, from with the youth to today, and Davis and all you folks. So yeah, mahalo nui. I could do a whole couple semesters on this topic of, you know, kind of ancestral leadership and then the transitions, you know, the relationships between land and leadership, you know, from Kawakahiko until, you know, up through the kingdom. But I just put this together really, you know, it's not a comprehensive history by any sense, but I'm trying to get at, I think, some of these pivotal values and ideas, you know, that really build, that we build upon as people, and, you know, that stays constant, you know, just is something that is always is there, and maybe innately, ancestrally. I mean, even I think in the midst of occupation, when our history was hidden and stripped from us for so many years, our connection to Āina as a source, as a mole, as a kumu, never falters. So so I think particularly, you know, in this time that we're in right now, it's really good to remember, right? He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina. We've had fierce discussions and debates, as Davis, you know, had talked about earlier, around leadership, you know, throughout our history, and that the Āina, you know, is a true leader, right? I mean, I think we have to keep that in mind. The Āina is really the ali'i, and all of us is trying our best to serve, and you know, whether it be from that period in home rule with Kauli'a, you know, I think that's one person Davis didn't mention, you know, in that home rule period, you know, you had, yeah, Wilcox, and, you know, Kuhio, and you know, you had Kauli'a, and then seems like Kauli'a passes away, and, you know, that then, you know, the party starts to sort of change and shift, but there's so much valuable mo'olelo. So I gotta just mahalo you folks for providing this opportunity for, you know, us to share and learn from each other. And so when I think about Āina, you know, He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina, you know, that this is a thing really that we're in the midst of right now, is that our Āina is our leader. And so if we can shift kind of to the next slide, you know, our leadership is really demonstrated in the health of our Āina, right? And I think that's what our kupuna meant, lived, you know, when we think about He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina, right? I mean, like, how do we come up with such a powerful phrase and saying is because they knew, they understood ancestrally, you know, that Āina is our elder sibling, right? That we come after, and it really is our kuleana and our duty to malama. And here's a you know, kind of a stark contrast, right? I mean, when our ancestral system of resource management and leadership, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this talk, is like, you know, the complexity of our genealogies, right? And the sophistication and the stratification of them is alongside the complexity of our land resource divisions and resource management. And those two things are because we are Āina. Āina is us. Kamakau actually says, you know, makanoho ana ke kanaka he Āina, you know, and when no more kanaka, it's a moku, right? So Kamakau tells us, you know, it's because when people live on the land, you know, that makes it Āina. So whenever we talk about this word Āina, we're talking about this relationship between people and place. And when our ancestral system was in place, you know, looked, you know, this is an image of a special place, you know, to many of us, Waipi'o on Hawaii Island. But you can see, you know, the health, the abundance, the interconnectedness of human and natural systems that really are abundant when you look at, you know, a place properly managed with Aloha Āina. Like this, to me, this image of Waipi'o conveys, right? Like the relationships between, you know, Kane Kawai Ola, that's up Mauka, right? And coming through and coming down through the Ahupua'a to Malama, you know, Haloa, and each of us and us being in relationship, you know. And, you know, I think we can think about that, right? Like Wai as as sort of an indicator of the health of our community, the health of our leadership, you know, and who we are as a people. And so I think, you know, I think I heard Uncle, you know, like Uncle, just Kava'a. I heard Kava'a say, you know, one time, you know, this oi oi, you know, like thinking about that wai, you know, like what kind of water you bring, you know, when somebody's asking you oi oi, you know, who you oi ko inoa, you know, what kind of water you bring, you know, is it, you know, is it water that honors who you are, us and our place, and is it honoring the sanctity of life and who we are as a people, or you know, sometimes water get tainted, you know, and we got to clean it, you know, and we got to purify and maybe purify ourselves, and so it's really on that kind of level that our kupuna were thinking about, to me, this relationship between health and ʻāina and well-being. And you know, it's no coincidence, right? 80 or 90% of our body is probably white. So we're bringing all kinds of white with us, you know, and so remembering as a people what we draw from, what we drink, you know, and what we leave behind. And that's the beauty of the water system and the water cycle, you know, is when we born, we drinking water we never saw fall from the sky, and at some point, you know, what will be raining on earth we will never drink, and it's going to go to our kids and our grandkids, because it filters through our ʻāina. So so it's really on that level of depth. I think we have to kind of recognize and that the spirituality, the philosophy, the leadership, you know, are all intertwined and tied together. And when our system isn't in place, you know, you can see this slide on the right, you know, which is the image of the alawai, right? And we know that Waikiki was full of abundant resources and lo'i and loko'i'a. And in fact, one of the projects I have my students work on looks at the loko'i'a and the lo'i, you know, in earlier times in Waikiki, and it's really amazing. But that was changed, right? Different value sets. You know, we go fill in the lo'i, develop for one specific purpose, which is, you know, economic revenue, which is only one indicator of health. And so we struggle with that as Kanaka. But what I'm getting at is, like, I think ancestrally, you know, throughout our time and our history, and you know, in the future, as long as we're here, you know, that phrase "Ulava mako me ka pohaku" is like, yeah, we're good, we're safe, we get enough as long as there's a rock in these islands. And so as long as we're here, we're gonna advocate for the health of our ʻāina, and I think we're gonna, you know, advocate for leadership that embodies these values. So if we can jump to the next slide. And so, you know, what's amazing to me is one of our earliest accounts, you know, at least in the newspaper, you know, this is very early on, 1842, published by, to me, one of our brilliant Kanaka scholars, Samuel Kamakau. And he publishes this, you know, in this newspaper that a lot of times was kind of had a lot of missionary influence, you know. So it's pretty amazing in some ways to me that, you know, he's taking this newspaper and getting, you know, these mo'olelo and mo'okuauhau out, really, that show the origins, you know, of our people and our relationships to ʻāina and to Aloha and to Papa and Wakea and each other. You know, there's a lot really that's going on, and you know, there's others, you know, these cosmogonic genealogies. You know, Dr. Lili'ika Kamelehiva teaches a, you know, whole series of courses on the depth of these, and she could give fantabulous talks about them. But there's a whole series of these, you know, cosmogonic genealogies, and sort of this is kind of one of them. Kumulipo is you know, another. But very early on, 1842. So kind of what's happening in this period in, you know, in Hawaiian history. Ha'alilio and William Richards had actually just left, you know, a few months prior, you know, and you know, they eventually end up advocating for, you know, Hawaiian independence and then the formation of the Hawaiian Kingdom and recognition as an independent sovereign state. But all of this is kind of going on, you know, in this time period. And so Kamakau is putting out this, you know, these genealogies, right, to show like, you know, the origins of who we are as a people. And, you know, in the midst of also what's happening in the 1840s is, you know, massive depopulation. We probably lost at this point, you know, maybe as much as 50 to 60% of our people. And so in the midst of all that adversity and tribulation, what did Kamakau look to? You know, again, it was the ʻāina, right? It was our relationships. And so he breaks it up into these 4 wa. You know, in this first wa, this first segment, he says, you know, he wa iloko kapoli, he poʻe akua, he poʻe kanaka. So it's, you know, like this period of like, you know, kind of darkness and eclipse, you know, and you know, he poʻe akua is like these people were, you know, as if they were gods, right? As if they're akua, and then he divides this into a second wa where he goes from haloa, right? And all of us know haloa. We just saw the image of haloa thriving in Waipio, to Helepawa. And, you know, he says, you know, ho'omaopopo ia ko lākou manawa he poʻe aliʻi mai kaʻi ke kahi, poʻe aliʻi ino ke kahi. And so, you know, the times of these chiefs are remembered, you know, and they're good and they're kind of, some of them not so good deeds, you know. And that's another thing is, you know, when ʻāina is the chief, right? People can change, you know, institutions can change. But what is guiding us as a principle is that health and well-being of the ʻāina and our relationship to it. So next slide, please. And then he goes into the third wa, you know, which is really this segment from Helepawa to Umi, roughly 46 generations. And I know Hina last seminar kind of talked about Umi and those mo'olelo. But you know, Kamakau says, you know, the time of the birth of these chiefs is remembered. You know, they're skilled and their names are kept and maintained in genealogies. You know, we know where their iwi are, you know, these kinds of things. And we'll go jump to the fourth wa, please. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Next slide. Yep. Thank you. And so Kamakau gets to this fourth wa really from Umi to Kamehameha, which is another 24 generations. And it's kind of in this period, you know, I think, you know, our population grows, you know, there's these waves of migrations, people are coming back and forth. And, you know, we kind of move from the Waipio and these windward valleys and, you know, population starts booming and expanding, you know, into leeward areas. And so something, you know, I think kind of amazing happens because, you know, He Aliʻi Ka, you know, because of our observations of the land, you know, our kupuna create these resource divisions. And so in the 66 generation, you know, there's sort of this birth of haho, and, you know, a lot of this, the mo'olelo suggests, you know, this is kind of the origin of this ahali'i and circle of kind of chiefly authority and pedigree. The very next, you know, generation is Palena. Palena, you know, is another name for these place boundaries that I'm going to talk about some more. And, you know, and our people kind of go on and progress, you know, up until Kamehameha in this 117th generation. All of these transitions and the relationships between, you know, people and ʻāina and our resources. So if we jump to the next slide, please. And so, you know, Kamakau says, "O kia kuʻau hawali'i, oia na kupuna o na li'i a mena kanaka o Hawaii nei." So, you know, this chief genealogy shows the ancestors of the ali'i and the people of Hawaii. And the idea is, you know, hoʻokahi no kupuna, you know, that we all come from the same source, right, from Haloa. And this is really important, right, because like I said, in the midst of this population collapse, you know, we weren't formally formed as a independent sovereign state at this point, and you know, fighting for recognition internationally in the world. Kamakau looks back, you know, and kind of says, you know, this is what connects us, right? Is our ancestral connections to ʻāina, is our genealogical relationships to each other, you know, and it's really, really powerful way to kind of form, you know, a national identity, if you will. And then I think he says something really important for us. You know, we joke about, you know, one island is better, my Ahupua'a better than yours, and that's all good fun stuff. But I think Kamakau kind of reminds us, you know, ona ali'i oahu a me Kauai, a me ko Hawaii, a me Maui, me Moloka'i, ho'okahi no kupuna. So, you know, even the ali'i from different islands, you know, they all spring from, you know, a common ancestor. So maybe for us, one of the lessons with He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina, you know, is, you know, sometimes is looking back is what is the thing that connects us? Plenty of things separate us. You know, I don't agree with some of my closest friends. And in fact, sometimes I don't agree with the ideas that I had, you know, 10 years ago. Some of the things I've written myself, sometimes I look at, I don't know if that's really right anymore. But what is the thing that, you know, is in common, you know, that kind of can unite us, that we have, and that's that relationship, right, to ʻāina and common ancestors. Can jump to the next slide. So, oh, sorry, one back. Oh, no, I think that, wait. Yep, that's the one. So in this period, right, of like, you know, our people, our population growing, we're getting, you know, more immersed in ʻāina, in observation of you know, resources and natural systems and the environment. In the midst of that, these establishment of these palena become like this, to me, really foundational and an important thing for our people and our society. And, you know, and we're going to learn about it, you know, many of these are still in place today, you know. And so palena, you know, Makalela Hawaii, you know, he pale, he mea pale ia, you know, and mamuli o ke ola ana I loko ke lawahi, you know. So these are protected places, right? Like when we talk about palena in English, you know, it translates to like a boundary. And when in my work, in my writings, I talk about a place boundary to mention that, you know, it's very, you know, it's a specific kind of boundary. But the reality is, you know, makano'ono ana he Hawaii, you know, we have to understand palena means palena, you know, and the subtleties and the distinctions in which our kupuna created these boundaries to manage our resources, we've got to respect, you know, and that's where some of the greatest ego, I think, is kind of inside. But what, you know, there's really like this kind of, in some ways, this period of innovation. You know, our people, our lands are getting super abundant with people. You know, we're extending production to feed a big and growing, booming population. And so what happens is on all of these islands, these different ali'i kind of formalize these palena, you know, and this is a old map of Oahu, you know, that shows some of those, you know, some of those Ahupua'a and Moku boundaries. And of course, it's made famous by Maili Kukahi, I think one of the, you know, brilliant ali'i of our, you know, of all the islands, actually. One of the stunning examples of leadership of our people. And some of the stories that associate Maili Kukahi are, yeah, he formalized these palena, he made them pa'a, right? So that people, you know, could know how to best cultivate and how to manage resources, you know, for their place. And in many times, I think these palena are you know, they're set up to be ecologically productive. Another thing Maili Kukahi did was, you know, he brought in, you know, a lot of the keiki of Maka'inana and you know, introduced them to the ahali'i and really kind of, you know, took care and malama. So yeah, so he's famed for that, and it seems like at this time it's kind of going on too, like from Maili Kukahi, and then on Kauai there's Mehanaokalā Hind, you know, sets up around, you know, the same time a similar system, Kaka'ana Leo on Maui, and then maybe a little bit, you know, a little bit following is Umi on Hawaii Island. So it seems like, you know, the names on Oahu, Kaka'ani'au is sort of an older name than Ahupua'a. So it, you know, the name might slightly change, but I think the sense of developing these divisions to maximize resource production is sort of like this innovation that happens and then, you know, kind of spread across our islands. And what's really amazing is, you know, this is happening like 15 to 17 generations prior to Cook. So we're talking about when we talk about our ahupua'a today, about our palena, we're talking about some of the oldest, you know, ike and knowledge systems that I think maybe sometimes, even for me, like a little bit take for granted. You know, here I am, I'm in Waimea, you know, on Hawaii Island, or in Waipio, in Waimanalo. And, you know, it's really amazing to think these names of these wahi, you know, the palena that were established 15 to 17 generations prior to Cook has survived, you know, this long that we still know them today. It's really, really amazing. And I think, you know, one thing to note is on this particular map, many of these ahupua'a and the palena extend, you know, they're not just land boundaries, you know, they're not just terrestrial boundaries, they extend into the marine. And so a lot of times there's fisheries, right, that are going to be included with them. So we can jump to the next slide, please. So it's really, you know, the development of these palena, right, that you know, and I think this philosophy, you know, our relationship, seeing the Āina as the elder sibling, right, helps us to develop a philosophy around Aloha Āina. You know, seeing natural systems as a kua helps us to you know, study and observe and categorize our social relationships with the natural world in ways that are more, you know, aligned than in present day. And so when we created these palena and these ahupua'a systems, right, we tried to do so in a way that, you know, that does Aloha Āina, right, that maximizes like the interconnectivity of the natural system, right, and its productivity, and, you know, the microbes and you know, the biology that's happening in those places, you know, to link those with what's happening, you know, in different parts of the same place. So you know, we could have designed agricultural systems that, you know, just stood independent, you know, like you look at industrial agriculture today, you know, it's sort of like a factory model, right? But we design ahupua'a to be these culturally appropriate, ecologically aligned, you know, these place-specific units with access to these diverse resources. So, you know, we set up our lo'i, and then, you know, we use that production to benefit makai, you know, in the local i'a, and recognizing that water is precious and it's going to go back and return, right? And it's part of a cycle and a system. So this, to me, this He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina, you know, allows us to set up, right, Aloha Āina, and set up these philosophies that enable us to maximize our production and demonstrate our leadership, right? Okay, so we'll go jump to the next slide. So, you know, if we kind of go from that system where our kupuna set up, you know, these divisions all across our islands, you know, they were formalized 15 to 17 generations prior to Cook. And then, you know, Cook arrives, right, stumbles upon Hawaii. And some of the first, you know, visual demonstrations, you know, of Hawaii look like this. In fact, this is the first map, you know, that was sort of made and it wasn't even Hawaii, you know, it's of the Sandwich Isles. And, you know, if we're able to zoom in here, you know, the names of the islands are kind of all kapakahi, you know, there's, you know, Ohawaii and, you know, Oahu, and I think Atui is the name, you know, on Kauai. And so, you know, the place names aren't accurate. And, you know, you look at this map and the islands look kind of empty, right? I mean, the reality is there was probably 1 million people on these islands at this time that this map was made. But if you look at the map, right, it looks empty. Yeah. And so, you know, this is an example of, to me, a haole map, right? A haole, you know, interpretation of our islands. And in fact, you know, they're trying to rename it and claim it for themselves. But look what happens when our people, you know, who know our place, you know He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina, get a hold of these tools and technologies. So if we can jump to the next slide. And you can immediately see how different, you know, this map looks, right? You can see the other islands, you know, even if you're Malihini, you know, you're from Āina, you're Haole, someplace else, even if you cannot read, you know, Olela Hawaii, you don't know the names of the places. Visually, you can see the islands look full, you know, and there's some type of, you know, relationship between, you know, these divisions, right, and the color coding system. And this map was made by, this brilliant, to me, one of these amazing Kanaka that truly were transitioning, into these earlier ancestral worlds, and then this more, whatever we call them today, contemporary period, where you have maps and laws and these other tools. And his name was S.P. Kalama. He was an advisor, on the Mele. He takes notes, and just this amazing Hawaiian geographer. But in 1838, when he got a hold of these tools, he immediately he's trying to show, these ancient relationships, right, and our resources and our names and our places and our palena, right, because He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina. So we can jump to the next slide, please. And so this kind of continues, in 1862, Lata Kapuaiwa, there's a story about him going on one mule from Waimea actually to Hilo, and he's going to go to hear this court case, and he's going across, Hamakua, and he realizes like how vast Hawaii Island is, and the complexity of the boundaries, right? Because, like on Oahu, on the Ko'olau side, you can kind of like the palena of the Ahupua'a are oftentimes they follow the topographical features of the line, the Āina, one ridge and so on and so forth. But places like Hamakua, right, are, the palena are only known by the people of the place. So, Lata is saying, with our people passing away and depopulation, we got to preserve these boundaries. And so he introduces, what eventually becomes the Boundary Commission. And in the first sort of draft of the legislation, he writes, "I palapala no ia ʻāina, ho'okaka ana i nā palena kahiko." So we're gonna map, right? We're gonna palapala these lands so that we can make clear the palena kahiko, these ancient boundaries of our people, right? And this is like a really visionary thing, because the lands were documented in the Mehele by place name, by Ahupua'a, right? By Moku, Kalana actually, and Moku was the island. But in doing so, it was just the name alone. And so, Lata recognizes that, we need to have some system to try to map out these lands and to collect, the testimonies of the people so that we can preserve these boundaries. So this becomes really important. We can jump to the next slide. And so if you go through the Boundary Commission, man, when I was doing my master's, Mehana was making me remember when I used to be young and not so fat and never have white in my beard. But, I could only do this on microfilm. And so I spent hours at the Hawaii State Archives, like scanning through. My eyes was going blind. I can't remember how many hundreds of dollars in quarters just to try to make copies, because there was no digital copies of these things back then. But we've gone through a revolution now in technology, and now these documents are readily accessible. You can find them online, but you can get these testimonies of our people about the very specificness of their place, right? And sometimes you can find place names and aspects of the palena that you're not going to find on any map. So please, next slide. And so it's interesting, even in taking the surveys, you can see Akau, Hikina, Kapua'i, like they're doing it all Makaulala Hawaii. So Akau North, they actually did it with compass and chains. I'm not going to get into all that detail, but it was the technology of the time for trying to map out places. And but they're doing it all Makaulala Hawaii. So it's pretty fascinating stuff. Okay, next one. And occasionally there's even maps that were kind of produced, that kind of show, people's account of the places at the time. It varies. The Boundary Commission, what's interesting, it starts in 1862, and it goes all the way through, the overthrow and the territory period, through the occupation. So, depending on what time the Boundary Commission case took place, you might get more richness of sources. But in any case, it establishes this precedent, in Hawaiian law, that actually the primary source, for a legal dispute isn't a map. It's actually native testimony. It's Kama'aina testimony, And this actually becomes important even in the Water Commission during the kingdom. This idea that, you know, people's testimony is a primary source and authority. So again, you know, Lata's sort of vision and insight that, hey, we got to go talk to the people for know our place, you know, to preserve our palena, and that's the real authority. Again, you know, to me, it's like it's about that He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina. So jump to the next one, please. And this was one. Sorry, the map never come out super clear in this one, but this is Mehana's one of her kulaiwi, Lahikiola in Kohala. I know that's a special name, and you know, here those little blue dots, you know, if you actually go in and zoom in on the map, I just showed the blue dots, but they were actually ahu that were marked on the ground. So this is an example of lots kind of, you know, requiring, hey, you got to go out, talk to the kupa, you know, actually map and envision the place. And so, you know, it's an example of our ancestral palena being converted into this new format, right? Perfect. And we'll go jump to the next slide. So, you know, kind of wrapping, you know, these ideas up, you know, it's nothing short of like one of the most amazing stories, I think, that, you know, has ever happened in our world. The ways in which our ancestors were able to maintain He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina and our relationship to Āina, and appropriate tools and technologies, you know, in the midst of population collapse and everything that was happening, you know, that they were able to preserve, you know, these boundaries. And so how did they do it? You know, in other places, you know, in the world, right? Indigenous people, you know, we don't have a lot of the names, right, for a lot of the places in so-called North America today, right? What was the ancestral name of New York? You know, but here in Hawaii, right, because of the work of people like S.P. Kalama, because of the vision of Kauikeoli to award lands in the Mehele through traditional places, we preserve, you know, some of that. And so I think, you know, it shows kind of this makahanaka ike, you know, like, hey, that you know, in doing we're going to learn, but we can also learn from doing them. So just because maybe we never do them before doesn't mean we cannot become experts in it and become the best, you know, in this new form and technology. And I think Klakaua, you know, he pushes this agenda in many ways. But you know, if I might share, you know, in my much younger days, you know, I remember hearing, you know, Klakaua, you know, was colonized and this kind of thing. And, you know, so I remember like seeing images like this, you know, I'm thinking like, yeah, oh, this Hawaiian is complicated, right? I mean, like, you know, he brings back Kumulipo, but, you know, how come he's wearing the medallions, you know, and these kind of things. But that's, to me, that's the makahanaka ike. If you actually look at leaders, you know, of the world that were at the same period as Klakaua, you know, the Emperor of Japan, you know, that kind of formulates sort of the modernization of Japan, King Rama of Siam, who eventually, you know, makes Thailand independent. They all was kind of dressing like this, you know, and dancing in these different worlds. And so, yeah, you know, I think our people, we can, makahanaka ike means, you know, we're going to do them, but if we never did them before, we can still learn from do them. And so maybe last slide. And so, you know, I really want to leave with this sense, you know, like an important part, right, of like what preserved, you know, our knowledge of place today, of our aupua. And it's been so amazing and, you know, beautiful, I think, for me to see, you know, the reemergence of people marking their palena, you know, whether, even if it's one sign, you know, if it's not an ahu, you know, a kuahu like before, but reclaiming our places and our names and saying, no, this is where we at. It's not mile marker 31. You know, this is Waimanalo, or, you know, reclaiming our places. And you can see it happening through all our islands. And a big part of that, again, is because of, you know, the ali'i at the time that, you know, put the kuleana back to say, we got to go talk to people. We got to recognize our places. We got to map them in accordance with our ancient traditions to maintain that relationship with He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina. No leila, mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.
Mahalo.
Kamana, I just had one, mahalo for that again, Kamana, and I don't know if you can see the chat notes on the side that people on the Zoom are giving, but mahalo for calling out my ʻāina kupuna there in Kohala. We had one question, and I'm going to then throw it over to Davis, because I know he has some other ones, but from the Zoom side, there was a clarification or an ask for a clarification on the name for the ali'i you mentioned early on, if it was kaka'analeo or kaka'alaneo. And I've seen it actually that Inoa, and it was when you was heluing the chiefs of each of the islands that were at that same time, right? You did that, who was on Oahu. I think it was during the Maili Kukahi discussion, right?
Yeah.
Do you...
Yeah, and I've heard it both ways, and so
Okay.
I would defer to those with Maui genealogies and ancestry. But I wish Lili Kala was on the call, because I think I've heard her say kaka'analeo. But yeah, that's a great thing to point out. So mahalo for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and a good thing that we can look up, and mahalo to all those people, right? I mean, Kumu Hina Project, of course, her Hawaiian Studies 341 genealogies class has, I think, instilled in a lot of us this kind of recollection and remembering of all of our li'i from the entire Āina. And we know that we can go back, look at our charts. I don't know if it triggers anybody, fear in anybody looking at those charts like it did when we were studying for exams. But we can actually find that kind of information online. And I do believe that even when I was doing genealogy searches for my ohana on Maui, that name actually shows up in different documents with slight variations. So that question came from Kolomona out there, and Kolomona is coming from Lanai. So aloha Kolomona, mahalo for that. Davis?
Yeah, how's it? Mahalo for the awesome presentation, Kamana. And I know that you have to get to a very important SeaWorld meeting wearing your water commissioner hat. And I think that's a great, actually, what I wanted to touch on. I love how you connected, it showed the mo'okuauhau of our ancestral ike and ability, the capacity that they showed to create these resource management systems via the palena and ahupua'a, and then how that evolved into, once the constitutional, more westernized law systems were adopted, that ike was still woven in. And so I want to ask you, in the capacity you hold a very, in addition to the long list of credentials that you have, one that really stands out to me is that you are on the Commission for Water Resource Management. And I know that it was a village effort to recruit some of the finest minds to take those seats when they became vacant. And for those that might not know, we obviously see the water struggles on Maui have been a key, massive topic in our community for many, many, many years. And maybe if you can share a bit of what the Water Commission's role is, in the context of managing these resources. And I think that having someone with your insight and background is very important in holding those seats to make those important decisions. And even if it's just to share your ike to folks that are making decisions, your peers on those boards. So if you can share a little bit about what the Water Commission does, and how what you shared is relevant and maybe kind of provides insight and guides your decisions and processing of the information that is shared with you in that role.
Sure. Yeah. Mahalo. Yeah. So I could have also talked about that. Like, it was also what emerges in the kingdom. the relationships, our ancestral relationships to Āina and to Hawaii get codified in a sense that the water is not owned, right? I mean, like, you know, it gets transferred into the Constitution and early Hawaiian Kingdom water decisions is that, you know, water is like a public trust, okay? And so, you know, after the overthrow, it shifts and water becomes commodified. But, you know, later on, when the first, you know, Hawaiian gets on the Hawaii Supreme Court, who our law school is named after, he starts to go back to, you know, the kingdom decisions. And he says, look, I don't care what people thought they owned water, sugar companies thought they owned water, but the reality is nobody owns the water. You know, it's a public trust. And so he actually borrows from stuff in the kingdom. And then that allows later on, you know, people that storm the Con to form, you know, the Hawaii State Resource Water Management Commission that I'm on, you know, and it's really around this idea of public trust. But what I'm getting at is like the origins of those ideas are still related to He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina. And so because of the mahele, because of the complexity of our legal system in Hawaii, even in the midst of the occupation, you know, the fact that we have, you know, 7-1, 1-1 that preserves, you know, Hawaiian custom as the practice here in Hawaii for law and not, you know, the Anglo common law. It allows us, you know, allows me in the commission to advocate for our ancestral principles and practices for Hawaii. And it's really complex, and I'm just one vote. And plenty times I you know, I don't sleep because of the complexity of the things that are going on, and to see our community struggle for Hawaii for generations is inspiring. Because it shows the resilience, He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina, of our people, that, you know, we're not going to stop, you know what I mean? But it also, that kuleana is heavy for me because, you know, I'm only one voice, and I gotta try make the best decision I can, knowing that might feel a little different to me maybe than some of my peers perhaps, but the good thing is, because of public trust, you know, we're able to advocate, and yeah, we've, you know, we're still getting better. We're learning as a commission, but we've restored more streams in the last, you know, 7 years than I think the commission ever has in its history, and that's because of our communities and our resilience, and, you know, the timing that we've had to do that. So. Yeah, get plenty there. I can come back to and talk on Hawaii maybe after, but mahalo.
Definitely. Mahalo.
You know, Davis, I don't know if you had any more questions, but I have one for Kamana, and that's, or maybe more of a comment and see if he has a, you know, feedback on it. The reason why it is so important for us today to understand that connection to our past, right? You gave one brilliant example of how someone who was alive during our modern era, right, reached back into those values and principles that were codified in law, right, that was a part of kingdom law, and then brought it forward, right, brought it forward into laws today, right? And then the process that's set up around, like, in order for you to be a commissioner, right, your name has to be put forward, right? And then other elected officials get to kind of determine whether you are at that seat or not, right? Someone with the value systems, the understanding, the kind of intelligence to back up that kuleana, that really heavy kuleana that you have, right? You carry a kaumaha that not many of us can necessarily relate to. But I think for our audience out there who are contemplating what civic engagement looks like, right? Contemplating what voting looks like for them and their part in the process, right? I think, and ask if you would agree or not, that the more that our voters are knowledgeable about what a healthy, thriving, well Hawaii is, and we have precedents, right? We have some we know what that looks like, right? We could tell, and you showed all those documents that kind of outline, they're outlined for us what that looks like. So if we have a voter base that kind of understands that, right, our people can understand that and advocate for leadership that also responds to that, right? That's the kind of questions they should be asking. Yeah, what are your values that you will make land decisions on? Yeah, how will you pick the people that protect our trusts, right? Our water, right? Our land trusts, our oceans, and so forth. Yeah, and I think there's, from what you just explained to us today, to what voters are going to have to be decided on, or just even if voting is not the main thing, just to understand what civic kuleana is, right, to their own communities, even that there is a strong, really strong connection, yeah, between the two. Yeah, so anyway, that's my thoughts, but do you have kind of thoughts about that too?
Yeah, I do. I think this has been something I've seen on the commission, and actually I gotta keep my composure up there, but sometimes I get emotional because just in a little time that I've been on, when you go to the meetings, yes, you're still gonna have developers and real estate agents, people that are paid to be there, but almost everybody else, and certainly almost everybody else my generation and younger, are talking about Aloha Āina. And you can see our people rising all across our islands on issues of Hawaii, and they're becoming experts, and they're going out and seeing their places and advocating and understanding the law. So I think you're right, Mehana. We, whatever level of civic engagement you can participate in, whether it's caring for the houseless, in your community, whether it's advocating for Hawaii, whether it's calling for fair and just budgets for OHA and the state to pay. I think we have to do that, and He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina means these resources are still our ancestors. I don't care what government says they control them, and that always going to be the case. So we need to exercise that kuleana over them, and I think for me personally, I think it's a complex thing, but voting is a part of it. I'd love to see more Aloha Āina throughout the legislature. I'd love to see when truly infused Aloha Āina effort. If there was an Aloha Āina governor, that person names the probate judge, that names KS trustees, that person names the head of Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Right.
These are long-term goals, but He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina, these resources are ours. They're going to be, we're not here to hang out and we're going back someplace else. If the red fuel tanks, the military leaks jet fuel into the aquifer in Red Hill, it's our great grandkids that go and face them. We're not going someplace else. So
right.
So that's what He Aliʻi Ka ʻāina means to me, that we have to find ways to ho'opono, right, and to ho'opolole those kinds of things. And sometimes it means, being on the commission, it's not easy work. It's not, it's really, really not easy work. But if I can restore one stream where, when family gets to swim in that stream that maybe, their grandparents never did, like, I think that's worth the fight. I think that's worth the heartache and the adversity and the conflict. So.
Oh yeah, mahalo. Yeah, Davis.
All right. I know you got to get going, Kamana, and Hina has a mele to share to kind of wrap this up. And, mahalo nui for that presentation, and especially, touching on what you just shared, kind of connecting the political landscape. Mahalo for bringing that up. And, that's really what we hope to achieve with this series is kind of just provide the ike and the manaʻo out there that people can digest, and for all the folks watching, as we navigate our future, and especially during this very uncertain time, leaders are who's making the decisions is very, very important. Who has seats at the table is very, very important. And I love how you just kind of threw that out there, like an Aloha ʻāina governor. That would be amazing. And Aloha ʻāina senators and legislators and council people and neighborhood board members and teachers and educators. We need Aloha ʻāina across the spectrum. So hopefully we can, folks can use this information to help navigate identifying the leaders that support these values, and support this information. So mahalo nui kamana. And speaking of Aloha ʻāina, I know Hina has a Mele Aloha ʻāina to share, to kind of tie all this together and invigorate our na'au and our kupuna. And I'll just leave it at that. Hina, take it away.
Mahalo. Mahalo nui ya ʻai Davis. Ke aloha nui mai ya kako a Pauloa in hoa Aloha ʻāina a kako e launa nei. No I ka manawa kako e launa ma keia wahi. Manawa no ia Mele Aloha ʻāina. No leila ka uke o kou. Kumai e naka naka. Rise up, stand up, my fellow Hawaiians. Next slide, please. Kumai a nawe like kako. The time to act is now. It is incumbent upon all of us to take into consideration our ability and our capacity to impact that which has great impact and oftentimes great detriment to our lives. So to inspire your heart, ke olu olu, e no ku'u wahi mele o Onipa'a mau, no ke aloha ʻāina. A pea nei no ka ʻōlelo. Aloha e kuʻu ʻāina o Hawaiʻi nani ka maha'o. Ka honua o la ahau mea me ka moana nui a Kanaloa. Au hea la e nā mamo e nā kama o ia ʻāina aloha. Kumai a kui lima a nawe like ho'i kākou. I love, honor, and cherish my land, beautiful Hawaii in all her astonishing wonder. The living earth of Mother Haumea and the vast ocean of Kanaloa. To the next generation, step up and out. Children of this beloved land, stand tall and unite and move forward together. E no kahimeni ana ia Mele. Aloha e ku'u ʻāina o Hawaiʻi nani ka maha'o. Ka honua o la haumea me ka moana nui a Kanaloa. Au he ala e nā mamo e nā kama o ia ʻāina aloha. Kumai kui lima anaue like ho'i kākou. Next slide. E ala e na mamo e o ka lahui e o Hawaiʻi e kukana ka e no ka hae aloha. Onipa'a mau no ke aloha ʻāina. The words say, rise everyone. It is a time to awaken all of our beloved descendants of our nation, our island people, of esteemed and honored Hawaii. Stand as Kanaka. Remember your heritage. Stand for our beloved flag, symbol of our nation. Be steadfast and vigilant always for our cause in defending and loving our land. Next slide. E mahalo I ka hoʻoilina, ka nohona ka Hawaii. No e au ka ike kupuna, he wai no ia muaku. Na kamana mai kalani mai, e ho'oholo mua ia kākou. Hayo maua ho'okupa'a no ka hano lili ulani. We are ever grateful for the legacy left to us, for our Hawaiian way of life. Ever enduring is the wisdom of our ancestors, the treasure trove for future generations. Blessed from the heavens upon high, driving and forging us onward and upward. Fight on, hold fast, and never give up for the glory and honor of Queen Liliuokalani. Moving back, one. And the chorus sings to us one more time. Sing along with me at home. One more to the front. E ala e na mamo e o ka hui e o Hawaii e pukanaka e no ka hae aloha Onipa'a mau no ke aloha ʻāina. He wahi mele ke ia I haku ia na'u no ka ʻāina aloha a me kona mau koa aloha ʻāina. A I haku ia ke ia mele nei I ke la makaika kunei o ka la umikumamaha o Februari e makaiki e rua kaukani umikumamaiva. So to all of our viewers out there in viewer land, wherever you may be, from your couch, from underneath the tree in your yard, or from your kitchen, or who knows where you might be ho'onenea right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this mele I give to all of you. And when I say all of you, I say, first and foremost, I give to you my fellow Kanaka. After my fellow Kanaka, I also include our fellow Kama'aina, our other local island people who are born and raised here in Hawaii. And you may not necessarily be ethnically Hawaiian, but that's okay because this mele is for all of us. And not only that, but I give this mele also with the invitation to the malihini, to the non-Hawaiians, to the visitors, to come and embrace the mele, listen to the mele, because it sings to you as well. Each and every one of us who make Hawaii our home and call Hawaii home, this is, for me as the composer of the song, this is my mainland, and this shall always be my mainland, and thus my heart, my life, and my time, my life's work shall be given for Hawaii. So I say to you all, whether we are Kanaka or Kama'aina or even Malihini, let us stand together. Let us work together. Let us work to help to build for a new Hawaii that is not necessarily new, but is based on tried and true understandings, based upon the legacy of the Ike Kupuna, our ancestral knowledge. And today we had a fabulous sharing brought to us by Dr. Kamana Beamer. And I am so thankful for hearing the words that he shared. I hope that you have enjoyed this brief sharing about this this mele. And I think I leave you with this thought. Here on this slide, I took the time to pen out the words of yet another quite well-known song. I think some of you may know it. I also think I know the Haku Mele. And the verse goes like this. E nau e mua e nā pōki ia e inu wai awa awa e vivo o lea ho'oku pa'a a o he hope e ho'i mai ai a na I wale no ka kou kau ko e mau I ke ala au e ke aloha ole a ka malihini. It says, forward, forward, young ones, young brothers and sisters, drink of the bitter waters, because life gives us all kinds of challenges, trials, and tribulations, but that's the way of life. And so now we are faced with the opportunity to be able to put forth our voices, exercise our voice, vote, make sure that we have people in office that will not do worse things to us that has already been done. And while we know that there are a range of political views out there, there is still great opportunity for us to impact the here and now. Again, the words say, be fearless and hold fast, be steadfast, for there's no turning back. Let us overcome all obstacles in front of us and go straight down on the path, for we have seen that the ways of the foreigners who came so many years ago, they leave us in quite a quandary now, and they leave us with this responsibility to awamo our kuleana, and it leaves us to consider our future. So according to the words and the sharing of Dr. Kamana Beamer, we know that we have a tried and true map and a plan. He Aliʻi Ka, what will be the fate of the Hawaiians? Our Kanaka, you and I, our fate is up to us. So you decide. Mahalo anui ke ʻāina. Mehana, I turn it back over to you.
Or you can go to Davis. Davis, you have any kind of culminating thoughts about today's discussion?
Mahalo nui. Thank you, mahalo Mehana and mahalo Hina for that wonderful mele that you just gifted everyone. You know, you and haku that for the lahui. I will say that maybe when we close out, you share it one more time or ask it in its entirety before we wrap up. But before we get to that, and mahalo for the summary you just provided. I was thinking of that we might have to kind of reinforce one more time to connect the dots and really emphasize that the Kamana laid out that our Ike Kupuna provides us a blueprint. And I would just add that we often get accused of wanting to turn back time and return to the past, and we're not forward thinking. And we know that that's inaccurate. It's not about turning back the clock. It's about looking at at a time when abundance was this place, when this place was of abundance, and maybe we just have to adopt some of those same principles, re-adopt. And I think that's a nexus, right, for what Kamana shared forward, and how we can make that relevant today and move forward.
Yeah,
right?
bring those forward, right? And then hold them off from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So mahalo for wrapping that up and tying that together, Hina. Mahalo for the mele. If we can just share the vote slide that has some of the key dates. Again, we'll share this every week and reinforce that we have a new voting process this year. It's all mail. And there are some steps that all of us have to take to ensure that we receive our ballots. And that is to make sure that we're registered by July 9th. And even if you know that you're registered, please go to the website and at the olvr.hawaii.gov and double check to make sure that your address is current. And especially for the young folks, I know myself, and I'm not that young anymore, but I'm really bad about checking the mail. But we got to be on it. We got to stay on it. All registered voters will have a ballot mailed to them. That's a huge opportunity to really shift the tide. Let's not miss it. Let's be grounded in our Ike and the legacy that our kupuna have provided us, and make sound decisions and exercise our voice. So please make sure you're registered and to check your address information. Yeah, by July 9th. That's for the primary election, which ballots will drop on July 21st. So mark these dates in your calendar and share that with your ohana. Let's make, we are ohana based. We gather with our families frequently, even now during this uncertain time of social distancing. I know that we are still connecting with our ohana. Have these discussions, remind them, and let's encourage everyone to participate and to seek the information that we need to feel comfortable in participating and making those decisions. And we hope that this online series will support that and can be of a resource for folks. Next week, we have Kavika Burgess coming up to talk a little bit more about that time of Huli'au, you know, in the late 19th century, early 20th century. I touched on it real briefly last week, really hoping to tee up a deeper discussion, and Kavika will share some of that next week, and Hina will of course be back to share more Mele. So, yeah, mahalo nui, and Hina, let's
Yeah, I'm
close
sorry.
it up. Oh,
David,
Mehana, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just one thing. We posted in the chat on Zoom, and we'll post it on Facebook too. But we have a survey if you guys can help us. And basically, you know, the purpose of the service is to make our presentations better, right? To make our showcase better, so that we can, you know how best to get information that you want out to you. Right, so it's being posted right now. You'll see it posted twice, one from one of our staff members, and then also from our OHA account. Again, basically, all of you out there, if you like what you're seeing, you know, if you can help us out by commenting there. If you don't like what you're seeing, if you can help us out and you know, comment there, right? All that information is good for us to know. And to keep within our, you know, our offerings. This is a very, you know, this format allows us to be a little less informal, but we that doesn't mean that we take anything that we say lightly, right? And the things that we're doing lightly. So we really want to work on our engagement with all of you that are out there. So yeah, please click on the link and help us out.
I just want to add one more thing and note a comment that I believe someone from Ma'o Farms looks like posted, and really they drew the connection, basically recognizing this powerful tool that we have now. You know, they pointed out that the maps were adopted as a technology in a way to provide information and to protect our resources, and they connected it to Zoom and how we can use this platform to continue to build resources and built on our Ike Kupuna. And so that said, please engage in the survey. We started this out, we launched this thinking we were only gonna do it for 4 weeks. We now know that we're gonna extend to 8 weeks. And it looks like, you know, Kamana already offered to come back. There's a lot we can discuss. He suggested all of our Kumu, you know, someone like Lili Kala, Kamele Hiva, he suggested that she joined. That would be beautiful. So maybe we have to extend this. So any ideas that you folks have, critiques, compliments, all of it, please share. And we're open to it all. And if this is something that we need to continue, we will figure out how to do that. So mahalo nui.
Hina.
Mahalo. Oh yeah, ho'i ka koe ka mele. Ke olu. And ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed through this mele, we'll go through once pauku mua ame kahui. Oia ho'i ka ho'oho a paukela ka pauku elua pauno ho'i ka hui a leila pau kako ma keia mele nei. Oia makakao hibeni kako. Aloha e ku'u ʻāina o Hawaiʻi nani ka maha o ka honua o la haumea me ka moana nui a kanaloa uhe ala e nā mamo, e nā kamao ia, ʻāina aloha, kumai kuilima, anau e like ho'i kako. E ala e nā mamo o ka lahu o Hawaii ku kukana kae no ka hae aloha Onipa'a mau no ke aloha ʻāina e mahalo I ka hoʻoilina ka nohona ka Hawaiʻi no e ao ka ʻike kupuna he wai no I amu aku na kamana mai ka lani mai e ho'oholo mua ia kākou hai o maoa ho'okupa'a no ka hano lili ulani e ala e na mamo e o ka lahui e o Hawaii e kukana ka e no ka hae aloha Onipa'a mau no ke aloha ʻāina no leila na ho aloha na ho
Eo.
e launa
Mahalo.
wau no keia o Kumu Hina, turning it back over to both of you, Davis, and to Mehana. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Mahalo
You
nui.
know,
See you all
aloha.
next week.
Yeah, aloha kako.
Ahui
Next
ho.
week, same time,
Aloha.
same place. Aloha.